Can you keep a secret? My wife's gonna be really mad at me if she finds out that I bought an expensive new toy without even talking to her first. I always wanted one of those thermal cameras that you plug into your cell phone. I totally went out and bought one. It's the FLIR 1. And we're gonna see what it does. I also kind of want to experiment with it just a little bit and see if there's any way to like hide from thermal camera, put something in front of you, you know, and kind of camouflage yourself from anyone who's trying to seek you out in the dark or whatever. Let's go see what happens. Right, so the FLIR 1 comes in a handy little carrying case. And of course, when you open it up, you find the device right there inside. A little charging cable. Now, you do have to charge the camera by itself, separate. Of course, you have to charge it up for the first time before you use it. We'll stick that right back in there. And here's the device itself, tucked right in there. So, as you can see, there's not a whole lot to it. Camera, I think the bottom one is the thermal right there, and the top one is just like a regular camera, I guess. The rest of it is just a self-contained package. There's your charging port, your power button, and of course that's where you plug it in. This blue dial that you turn here is actually going to pull the socket in and out. It takes a lot of turning to make it do anything, but that is so that you can send it all the way out, something like that, and then you can plug it into a phone that has like a recessed port for like if you got armor on your phone or whatever. Just plug it in just like that and it should still work just fine. So that's the basics of it. There is an app that you have to download to make it work. I believe it's called FLIR 1 actually, which makes sense. That's what this device is called. But once you download the app, you just plug this in. Well, you have to turn it on so that the orange indicator is on. Actually, it should be flashing green, and then then you plug it into your device, and then you're ready to go. So let's take a look around and see what we can see. Okay, so this is what it looks like. We're in my front yard now. You can see the motorcycle over there. And behind it there's a trailer, there's some trees up there. They look kind of cool. And of course the concrete pathway is quite a bit warmer. You can see the grass out there. And there's the street out there. And the neighbor's house. And so, as you can see, it's utilizing both the thermal camera and the optical camera to make a composite type of picture using both images, and that allows the sharpness. Now, if I were to cover up just the optical camera, what you got left is just the thermal. So I'm thinking to do some of my tests. I'm probably going to put a piece of tape over the optical camera. Oh, that pickup looks kind of neat. And so, yeah, anyways, let's get another look at the motorcycle. So that's what everything looks like. And cover up the thermal, and this is what it looks like with just the optical. It looks a little weird, kind of useless information there, so I'll put it back. So now that we have an idea of how this thing works, you know what, this isn't working. Let's go back to the other way. That's better. All right, as I was saying, now that we have an idea of how this thing works, let's take it out to the woods and we'll try to hide from it. I'm thinking, I've heard that those really shiny emergency blankets should work, so I'm going to bring one of those. I'm going to bring some camouflage netting and maybe an army poncho. various other things out there, and we'll see what best hides our signature. Okay, so we made it out to the woods. Beautiful scenery. It's a beautiful day. The temperature outside is about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 15 degrees Celsius for all my international viewers out there. And everything out here through the thermal camera looks like it's just a little bit below that, at least on the surface of the actual material objects. About 11, 12, 13 degrees Celsius. So just a little bit cooler. All the things that I brought with me out here to the woods were in the truck with me. So they're a little bit warmer, and they're probably still exhibiting a little bit of that warm temperature. So we'll have to keep that in mind a little bit as we do this. Although I've already kind of spread them out a little bit, trying to get them down to the ambient temperature of the surrounding area. So we'll see how well that does. With all that aside and taken into consideration, the first thing that I want to try is probably the best thing that I've got as far as visual camouflage. And that is this camouflage net that I often like to drape over my tent when I go camping and stuff. And I tell you, even though this is not a military grade camouflage net, this is just something I picked up off of eBay. It does seem to do a really good job visually, especially if you throw a couple leaves on top. It kind of makes my tent look into just a mound of forest, I guess. But we'll see how it does when it comes to actually disguising my thermal signature. To do that, I'm going to throw it over this rope that I tied to these trees, and I'll just step behind it and we'll see what we get. All right, looks pretty good. Now it is 2 layers, but I can see through it an awful lot on the visual spectrum. Let's take a look in the thermal. I'll step behind it. A lot of little holes through it that you can see my heat signature through. I guess that should have been expected, but overall, it did an okay job. I'd say we could use this in a pinch, but we'll use the right tool for the right job. This is better for visual camouflage. Let's see what else I've got. Now, something I did bring with me is this emergency blanket. I hear they do really good. I've seen other channels use the emergency blanket, and it seemed to work pretty well, at least while they were holding it up high, and it would completely camouflage them. Now, I'm not going to open this because it's a real nightmare trying to get it folded back up. But if you want to see how well these emergency blankets perform, I encourage you to go check it out on some of the other channels. I'm not going to do this today. If you really want me to, I can later on, but go ahead and beg me for it in the comments section below. Something I do have that I am willing to open up instead of the emergency blanket is this Arcturus outdoor gear emergency blanket. This is a little bit different. Something that I think was well worth the money. I'll show you why. Comes in a nice pouch. I'll just toss that on the ground. But it's a camouflage on one side, and they come in various other colors. But on the other side, it's shiny, just like an emergency blanket. So I'm thinking, if we take this emergency blanket and drape it over the line, like that. Okay. Not too bad visually. A little dark for the scene that we're in, but I mean, it's camouflage as long as it breaks up your pattern. Let's see how it looks in the thermal. Actually, this is doing a really good job. You can't hardly see me at all. You can see my feet a little bit there on the bottom, but that's just because it doesn't reach all the way down. Hey, I think this is doing a pretty okay job. Okay, so that's the Arcturus emergency blanket. I'm guessing that with this shiny side, not only will it keep your thermal signature all encased and difficult to see, but it'll also keep you pretty darn warm in the colder temperatures. Let's try something else. Okay, so this is a little thing. Well, I got this on eBay too. It's really not meant to disguise a thermal signature. It's kind of just a, like a head shroud, something you can disguise your face with, something like this, just for camouflaging and breaking up your outline visually. But I wanted to give it a try, just to see how it'll perform. It's worth noting though that this one, if you can see here, has a lot of these little tiny holes. It's basically just a net. So I can't really imagine it performing any better than the big camouflage netting that I usually use for my tent. Now there's not a whole lot to go with here, but I'll go ahead and put it on the line anyways. And the wind is kind of moving it around, but let's go ahead and try that. Let's look at the thermal. Okay, so that does not look very good at all. It's kind of breaking up my thermal outline. Okay, so there it is. Oh, the wind is still picking it up. And, well, yeah, honestly, guys, I'm pretty disappointed with this one. And I think it's one of those things that maybe as a visual camouflage, it does do a fair to decent job at breaking up the outline. You can just wrap it around anything. I like to wrap it around my head because the human face is very easy to distinguish in any environment. Human beings love to spot faces in things that sometimes faces aren't really there, like the one on Mars. Not really a face, by the way. But in any case, I don't know. As thermal, yeah, not so much. Let's get rid of that. Let's try something else. So at this point, I decided to get a little bit creative. You might recognize this if you live in a warm environment and you have a car. This is one of those windshield visors that reflects the sun right back out again and keeps your car cool. I haven't really tried it as far as keeping the car cool, but well, there's only one way to know. I guess that's why I got a thermal camera. Let's find out. I'm gonna hang this up on the line here. And hopefully it'll stay put. There we are. All right, let's give this a try. Okay. Well, as you can see, it's doing an excellent job in the area that it's covering. You can see my legs sticking out at the bottom. You can see my arms kind of hanging out the sides. But the area that it actually covers, it's doing a fair to decent job. I can see some heat in it, but it looks like it's definitely not me standing behind it that I'm seeing here. It's probably just, I don't know, sun or ambient heat or something like that. Okay, so that was interesting. I would consider this more of a thermal camouflage, but effective nonetheless. It's not going to make you invisible, but it's definitely going to make it so that nobody can tell what you are. You are effectively hiding from other people, thermally anyways. Visually, yeah, I don't know about using a shiny thing when you're trying to be visually camouflaged. I guess you have to pick and choose between, being thermally camouflaged and visually camouflaged. Let's try the next thing. Okay, so the next thing I've got, and to all of my service members, past and present, you might recall this one, the green wool army blanket. We're just gonna see what this can do. We're seeing what sticks here. It's a little bit heavy. I wouldn't want to pack one of these, but I mean, I'm sure they used to did at some point in time. But it's a heavy wool. Well, let me give you a close up so you can see what it's really made of. I mean, who uses wool blankets anymore? But it's excellent as far as keeping you warm in a cold environment when you're trying to sleep. So I'm thinking this should do a fairly decent job at hiding my thermal signature. Let's hang it up and see what we got. Okay. Looks like I'm hanging my laundry out to dry. Let's see what happens when I get behind it. Okay, that is doing a really good job, actually. I mean, you can see it fluttering in the breeze a little bit. Overall, I mean, you can see my feet sticking out the bottom, but as far as thermal camouflage, it's really not bad. I'm actually kind of impressed with this. Okay, so, and to boot, it's already like an olive drab green, so it kind of blends in visually with the surrounding environment. Not perfectly, but I mean, a whole lot better than a sun visor, I think. All right, I've still got more. Let's try something else. So once again, with the whole military theme, I also decided to bring a military poncho. Again, all my veterans are going to remember these things. Just a kind of a rubbery latex poncho with a hood on top. And if you've spent any time on the rifle range in the Pacific Northwest, you're probably very familiar with this, especially on those days that you forgot your Gore-Tex. Let's hang it up and see how it does at hiding a thermal signature. Now, honestly, I've got high hopes for this because I'm sure you've seen the YouTube channels where they are using one of these as a makeshift tent, which is a great idea. These are very easy to use as a tent because it's got the little grommets on the end. You can just tuck in the hood and zip it off so that it's relatively closed. And it's not a perfect little tent. It's going to be open on each end, but that's not the point of our experiment. We're trying to see if it'll disguise us in thermal cameras. So let's take a look. Oh yes, once again, I am actually very impressed with this. And it seems like, yeah, once again, all you can really see is my feet. I'm starting to see a pattern here. As long as it's a solid surface and it matches the temperature of the surrounding environment, then it does a pretty bang-on job at hiding your thermal signature. Okay. Yes, I definitely want to see what happens next. It seems like as long as the surface of the material is the same temperature as everything else, then it becomes almost invisible. So I kind of want to see what a tarp, like a regular tarp, like what you would tie down your load with, like the bed of your pickup, how that'll look in the thermal. Let's try it. This is just like a regular tarp, like what you would tie down your load with in the bed of your pickup truck. This is a little bit on the big side, so I'm not gonna unfold it all the way. This is actually a bit on the huge side. So I'll just take note that there are 4 layers worth of tarp here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just gonna try that out just like that. And the good thing about one of these tarps is that as long as you get them brand new and they're not worn out, they're pretty much completely waterproof. Let's see if they're thermal proof. Hey, you know what? This is looking pretty good. It looks like a wall, just like a slightly wrinkly wall. But again, it's really kind of showing me that I was right, that as long as it's the correct temperature as the surrounding environment, it'll do a pretty darn good job. I'm really impressed with this. You know, just for grins, I want to try one more thing. Okay, so I'm not going swimming, but I did bring a beach towel. I don't know what it's going to do because the beach towels always feel kind of warm compared to all the plastics and, you know, all the foils and everything else. But it should be the same temperature as everything else. Let's hang it up and step behind it. Yep, that's just about what I expected. It's doing a pretty good job. With the exception of the fact that it's really small and it's fluttering in the breeze a bit. You can see my legs and you can see my arms sticking out the sides. But aside from that, it's serving as a barrier. So there it is. What did we learn here? Well, it seems like the most important thing we learned is that when you're looking through a thermal device, that it's going to show you the temperature of the surface that you're looking at. And if that surface is the same as everything around it, it's not really going to stand out a whole lot, which is good because that makes it really easy to hide behind something. However, and I think this is kind of important, all the big rumors about being able to see through walls, I think we've broadly debunked that. We couldn't even see through a beach towel. We could see around it. If I'm sticking my hands out the sides, then you can see around it quite easily. But as for being able to see a heat signature directly through it, yeah, not so much. Maybe if I left my body right up against that beach towel from the other side, then I might be able to heat up through some sort of thermal transference, heat up the beach towel, and then it will show through the viewfinder. But largely, as long as there's an air gap between my body heat and that beach towel or whatever else you're using to cover yourself, there really shouldn't be too much of a big deal. But that brings us to the next really big question. What if you're trying to sleep in a spot and try to stay hidden at the same time, not just optically, but thermally hidden? How can you keep yourself hidden when you're actually touching the blankets that are keeping you warm at night? And this is the question that we're going to take a look at in the very next video, which I will leave a link to right up there. I'll see you there. So one last thing before we go. I just found out that you can technically use this thermal camera to find these little guys over here. So I've got several of these security cameras throughout my house, and I found that every single one of these things has a heat signature all of its own. So if you're just wandering around in like a place that you may not know may have a camera or not, and like a hotel room or someplace, scan around and you can actually see the heat signature of things that may or may not supposed to be there. Thanks for watching.